Hi, this is Donald James Parker, and welcome to my YouTube channel. I am going to share with you an interview that I did with Doreen Virtue. It was supposed to be a mutual interview, but it ended up her interviewing me and asking all the questions. In theory, we're going to do another one where I get to ask her questions. So I'm going to encourage you to go out to her channel and subscribe. She's got some very interesting things to say. She's a former New Age guru, appeared on the Oprah Winfrey Show and several other TV shows and so on. And so she found out that the Christianity that she embraced was New Age and it wasn't the true Christianity that Jesus wants us to follow. And so she is now a spokesman for Jesus and um, criticizes the New Age movement, brings the truth to the table. So go out and check out her channel and see some of the interesting videos that she has. A disclaimer, she and I don't agree on every topic dealing with Christianity, and I know that's pretty obvious that nobody agrees 100% with another person on all the different facets of Christianity. But anyway, this video is about basically her asking questions about my movies. She's a fan of my movies, so that was not only a big surprise, it was a very pleasant one. So here we go. Thank you. God bless.
So, Donald, I believe I've watched all your movies. I've seen some of the interviews that you've been involved in. I've also seen some criticisms that hurt my heart about some of your movies. And your movies are challenging because you talk about kind of theological issues that I normally wouldn't talk about. And I don't speak in tongues or have any aspirations to, but that's a topic of at least two of your movies that I've seen.
Elite.
But at least, but you always share the gospel. And to me, that's the most important thing, is that there's this heart for the gospel, the primary issue that, and you disciple, I think, in your movies too. You really seem to exhibit the Great Commission in your movies. So Lions Roar No More, you actually filmed that in Africa?
Well, I didn't film it. I just provided the script and the money, and my friends in Africa did the rest. I
That
edited
was,
it.
yeah, that was so well done about sharing the gospel with someone who was on their deathbed.
Yeah. Well, that was a true story. I I got the had a book. A guy named Philip Eister wrote a book. I can't remember what it was called, Soaring Heights or something like that. And he had little stories about people in it. And he had this story about this evangelist, and he told the story of what happened there in my movie. And so I reached out to Philip Eister and said, could you put me in contact with this guy? Because they didn't give his real name because he lives in a Muslim country and his life could have been endangered,
Right.
although they probably know he's doing this anyway. So, but just to make sure he didn't make it any worse, he was incognito in the book. So I made up another new name for him in the movie, and he reached out to him, and so I got his email address and sent him a script, and he said thumbs up. So
Yeah.
so I went ahead and made the movie, and it's my most evangelistic movie, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Typically, I preach to the choir. I'm more into discipling people, but that one is pretty much pure evangelism.
It is, and especially in the face of potential persecution, which you show in the movie, the being shunned, being persecuted for being a Christian. It was really dramatic and so authentic. Where do you cast all these folks? You're always in the movies, but you bring in different people. Are they all Christians, first of all?
I try to only use Christians on my movies. Now, I've
Mm-hmm.
had arguments with people over that, and I've gotten in trouble because I posted on Facebook. I said, if somebody is truly a Christian on Facebook, wouldn't they say that in their bio? And there's so many people, especially Christian actors, they don't have anything about their religion, and so, but they hang out. They have all these Christian friends in the movie business, so you assume, well, this is a person's Christian too. But I've had people they come in my movie set, and we always pray before we shoot and after we shoot
in the day. And so I'll say, hey, would you pray? It's like, no. So you wonder, how Christian they are if they won't even pray for us. But I do, if this is God's work, you want God's workers on the project, and you don't want, if you have a demonic influence comes into the set, is that not going to make the production flawed in some fashion, perhaps, or cause problems? So I want to have people that are working for the Lord. In fact, my ideal scene is to have a bunch of people come in, no money involved. We don't eat. We're fasting, and we shoot a movie, and we let God's Spirit lead us in that movie shoot, and it's all for Him, all for His glory. Even now, I don't even have credit, so people know who the actors were, or
Nice.
the director, or anything. It's just it's just a movie that people watch and go, "Wow, that's God's moving." So that's the dream world I live in. That most people, we get in arguments and saying, well, I'm not going to work for free on a Christian movie just because I get the exposure. We have these people all the time complaining about because the Christian films have such a small budget. A lot of times the actors they'll get will be freebies. Now, I don't pay very much, but I've tried to pay my actors as much as I could. So I started out reaching out to Facebook friends. And then I joined a thing called faith-based casting, so I can just post a thing out there, say, I'm making this movie here. I need a 35 to 45-year-old woman that did whatever attributes, and people will submit. They have thousands of actors on there, and it's supposedly faith-based. So I would found some of my actresses and actors there, but a lot of them are repeats. Somebody I worked with before. I want to work with people that I like, and I know that they'll be responsible and learn their lines and so on. So that's I've had people. Flew one gal in from California for Hearts or Trump, guy from Oklahoma, a guy from Texas. And my last one I just did, a gal from Montana flew in. And so they've come from probably about half the states in the United States. So for my 14 movies, and of course Africa, I didn't have any.
I do like when I see the repeat actors, like your Best Friends series. It seemed like it was a series. You had
Yes,
Royce.
it was three movies.
Royce Henry, who I really like his acting skills.
Yes,
Is
he's
he
an
coming?
excellent.
Is he coming back to any of your movies in the future?
Well, we had another one. It's called Best Friends Mentoring, which was about them getting into the practice of mentoring younger people, as the Bible tells us to do. And so Royce was going to have a person he was mentoring. I was going to have one I was mentoring. And he was going to get a new girlfriend who actually was Kelly Nealon Clark, who was just killed in a plane crash just a few months ago.
Sorry.
So that's who I wanted for it. But we never got that one off the ground, so it's never been made. But we talked about doing it just recently again. So maybe someday I would love to work with Royce again. We had, the kind of camaraderie, the bantering back and forth that we do in the movie. We did that in real life too. So he's a character.
Yeah, it was enjoyable, the bantering, and then also kind of coming from the charismatic perspective of your character, and then more of the Reformed Baptist character that he was playing, and just talking about the common ground, the primary issues, and the unity that showed. I really liked that.
This is really strange. Now it's me who wants to talk about God, and you're avoiding the topic.
There's also an actress that you've used a couple times named Diana Schmidt, who I've really enjoyed, and I've seen her in other movies too. And she seems like someone who, she just glows. And she played your girlfriend or your wife, I think, in a couple of the movies.
Well, second movie in the Best Friends series, she was my girlfriend, and the third movie, she was my wife. We never had a wedding in the movie, but it just inferred that we'd gotten married. So
it was nice. I like how you tend to bring romance into each of your movies. It seems
I do. I'm a romantic at heart.
With your movies, I find them not only heartfelt and entertaining, but your heart for the gospel shines through. That you there's always a character in the film who doesn't know the Lord, and then one of the other characters will share the gospel, or at least point them to Jesus, and or invite them to Bible study. And it's just really encouraging for the rest of us to do that as well.
Amen.
And Donald, as I've said, I've really enjoyed all of your movies. The only issues I've had, the only parts that made me kind of cringe, that challenged me, were in just a couple of your movies. You had a plot point that implied that someone who was very sick could only be healed by someone who prayed over them in tongues. And that triggered me. I have to admit, it reminded me of my old Christian Science days where we were taught you had to come up with a special prayer or the right Bible verse, and then the person would be healed. And this could trigger someone coming out of Word of Faith for sure. As we both know, all healing, and God still does miracles, of course, today. It's according to His will and His timing and His ways. Of all your movies, do you have a favorite that you've made, and why is it your favorite?
I think Unexpected Bar Mitzvah is my favorite. When I made that, I at first I wrote it as a book, and then I made the movie later. And I was sure that it was going to change the world. And I'm still hoping it might have a little piece of that action. But my heart yearns for the Jewish people to find their Messiah. And it just blows my mind that they refuse to accept him.
And again, like your movie in Africa, that theme of persecution, being shunned for being a Christian, really came through and was very encouraging.
Well, thank you. I was hoping it would, well, I'm hoping to reach the Muslim world there. I mean, that's the purpose.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, trying to extend the work of that man that the story's about, his reach is going to be limited to, the people he comes in contact with pretty much. So, but, when you get something on the screen somewhere that can go out to everybody in the world, hopefully it has more influence. That's my theory anyway.
Have you always been so bold for Christ with your books
No.
and your films and in your life?
No. I still am not bold in that matter. I don't do any street preaching. The people that are bold, I mean, they're going out to.
So one of the things that I've always wondered with a director who's also the actor in the movie, how does that work logistically? How do you be in the movie and also direct the movie at the same time?
Well, it's not very optimal, let's put it that way, because you really can't see when I'm focused on my lines, I'm not really being able to see what's going on in the scene so much. But I'm a very, very hands-off type of director. What I like to do is have rehearsals ahead of time where we go through all the scenes and I do my directing there. So I say, this is how I want you to deliver this line. This is where you got to, really bring the emotion here. And I let the actors do the rest. So by the time we get to set, pretty much everybody knows what I'm expecting of them. And I don't need to say anything. We just go through the scenes. We shoot fast. The longest movie we took 12 days to shoot, but typically it's 5 days, maybe 6 days to shoot the whole movie. So we don't mess around. We just, do the scene 2 or 3 times, and say, okay, that's good. We move the cameras, get a different angle, and say, okay, let's go. So, but if you really want to be a hands-on director and you're acting, it doesn't work real well.
And then some of the movies, you are the main character, like the Gramps movies. And I wondered if you could talk about those movies. What was the genesis of you coming up with the Gramps films, and what did you hope with those movies?
Actually, In Gramps' Shoes was based on kind of a real life experience where I had raced against a relay team. I was a high school teacher, and the girls' relay team, they ran against me. I ran 2 miles. They ran a half mile each, and I beat them. And that I always had the idea, I need to write a story about that someday. And so when I don't know exactly what triggered me to use that for my very first movie, but that was the first one I made. It kind of incorporated my running days. Whenever I ran, I always, I had this mantra, who do I love? Jesus. What do I do? Run. Or love you, Jesus. Glory be to God. That was my, because running is painful, especially when you're running fast.
Yeah.
And so I would always, it's not quite praise, but, it was, it took my mind off the running, and so that was part of the genesis for that. And so then that movie came out, and we had the premiere here in the theater. We had a theater in those days, and I talked to the manager into letting us show the movie there. And so we did 3 showings. And the first showing, it was completely filled. There wasn't even a seat for my wife to sit down. But the response was, people are coming out and saying, "Now that's the kind of movie we need to make." And buying the DVDs I had at the table there, and so I'm like pumped. I'm like, "Oh, I better do this again or something." I sat down and wrote a script called Gramps Goes to College, which was a prequel to In Gramps' Shoes because he was not there anymore, and address the evolution issue.
Don't look now, but here comes that old guy that lives in our dorm.
Are you kidding me? The man's a fossil. What's he doing in college?
A little bit of science humor.
Not much. He's not a fossil. He's a man, and a nice one at that.
Do you know him?
Not officially.
Hi, Michaela. You saving the seat for someone?
No, sir.
Oh, thanks.
How did you know my name?
Your dad and I had a little chat after he left you off at the dorm.
Excuse me. I just need to check and make sure that you're a registered student. We don't allow people to just drop in.
Oh, yeah.
Do you have your student card?
Yeah. There you go.
Tie bounds. Oh, there you are. Well, welcome to my class, Mr. Bounds.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoy yourself thoroughly. It's not often that I get to instruct someone from my generation.
Well, I'm convinced I'm going to find this class absolutely fascinating. I do hope you allow student interaction.
Oh, from you, I'd be very receptive.
I think she likes you.
Not for long. That poor woman doesn't know what's about to hit her.
Welcome to Biology 100. I'm Dr. Tucker, and this is my 25th year teaching this class. I'd like to start this semester with a question. And I am going to ask this same question during the last class of the semester, and we'll see the comparison. I would like all of you who believe that God created the universe and life as it is to stand up. Yeah, we always have a number of students who cling to the superstition. But by the time you finish my course, almost no one stands to confess this foolishness. All right, you can all sit down. Now, I would like to put one student on the spot, and then we'll begin to learn how life evolved on this planet to where we are today. Mr. Bounds, would you care to make a brief statement about how you feel about my question?
Well, the fool has said in his heart that there is no God.
Are you calling me a fool, Mr. Bounds?
Seems to me you just called me one a second ago. But no. I'm just merely quoting the Bible. I'll let everyone extrapolate from that to the logical conclusion that follows.
Shaping young minds is what I do. It's easier than working with minds that have been filled with a lifetime of superstition, folklore. But I fully embrace the challenge of bringing light into your darkness.
Oh, ditto.
And then we shot it in December, which was a bad mistake because it was so cold. I was wearing my parka. I've got, I grew up in South Dakota where it's cold, and I have this parka that I brought down to Tennessee. I've worn it once until that movie shoot, but that was the Gramps movies. So
Those were fun movies. I really appreciated them. Gramps Goes to College and In Gramps' Shoes. So links in the description below. You've got to check them out, especially if you're like me, a senior. It really shows that we are needed for evangelism and that we can make a difference in young people's lives, like you show in those movies.
That was another thing that I forgot to mention. That's been my thrust, is that I didn't write my first book. I didn't publish my first book till I was about 57.
Mm.
And I was 63 when my first movie was produced. So I was trying to get the message out to people that, just because we're old doesn't mean we can't be productive. Some people, they lose, they have no reason to live. You'd say, why do people die so soon after they retire? They got nothing to be, nothing to live for.
Mm.
So I wanted to impress people, don't quit working just because you're retired. That's now you can work on what you want to and what you need to, and not what you had to. That's, put food on the table and pay your insurance bills and stuff. So that's a message that I've had consistently through my movies.
Yeah, it really shows. Your most recent movie that you have a youth group involved. Again, that whole theme of helping the younger generation, equipping the young Christians comes through very strong.
Well, that's goes back to In Gramps' shoes. Gramps was passing the torch on to his grandson. So that's where the people say, where do you get that title? Well, it's like literally and figuratively that the boy took Gramps' shoes and started wearing them.
Mm-hmm. Well, I appreciate also your scripts. And, someone who grew up in the 60s and 70s, there's phrases we used back then that you don't hear much anymore, but I hear them in your movies. And I hear them in your young people in the scripts that they speak. And it's such a kick to hear. I can't think of any specifically, but but for those who are watching this, who are, I guess we're the boomer generation, you'll appreciate the scripts and the dialogue in Donald James Parker's movies because it's familiar and comforting, and I think very literate. You kind of have to be on your toes to watch your movies because it's not lazy person scripts at all. You have to be engaged and paying attention.
Yeah, I disagree with the statement. I disagree with the statement that puns are the lowest form of wit. I think you can be very punny and get a poignant message through them. So I try to. So humor, again, it's another spoonful of sugar to help that medicine go down. So humor and romance
they come through in your movies. My dad would say a lot of puns too, so I think of them as dad jokes a little bit. Yeah, they are in the movies.
Well, a lot of people have the word for them cheesy. I'm like, whatever. Define cheesy.
Yeah, well, like you said, the modern movies very often are filled with expletives, and we are exhorted in the Bible to not cuss. So I also love that I can relax watching your movies and know that there's not going to be curse words coming through the screen.
I don't like the F-bomb, and I don't like the Lord his name being taken in vain. So those things are definitely taboo. But
yeah, I appreciate that you don't have your characters using the Lord's name in vain ever. And so what's next for you? What are you working on? What are you praying for?
Yeah, I have a script called I almost shot it this last year. It's called The Beauty and the Atheist.
Wow.
I have a lot of contact with atheists. They actually have a channel called God Awful Movies. And they pan all my movies. They just love to diss on me. And they've gone after Rich Cristiano and some others as well, but they really have picked on me. And so I look at that and I go, and so I reached out to one of them and challenged him to a debate on evolution. So we spent, just like this, we spent about, I don't know, hour and a half, 2 hours talking. And I'm thinking maybe that's my ministry, because these people watch my movies more than Christians. And so I'm like, maybe, at some point in time, these people are going to change from woke to awakened, and they're going to see that they missed the boat as far as God is concerned, and they're going to be looking for materials stuff. Maybe at some point, this is going to come to fruition, and these people that have made fun of me in the past are going to thank me. I don't know. Not that I need the thanks or anything. What's important is that they find their way to heaven. But
Yeah. I've seen some of the criticisms on that channel. Not that I've
Yeah.
looked for that channel, but when I was researching for this
Yeah.
interview, I've seen
So I thought that maybe the way to actually reach these people is I'm going to write a movie that's got an atheist in there who's
nice.
arguing against the, presenting this argument that we had, this debate. And so I did, and I ran it by a pretty well-known Christian actress, and she loved it, but it's she didn't want to do it because I don't know if it's because of the money, it's because I can't pay that much. Or the time constraint, because she'd have a lot of lines to learn. And so right now I'm reached out to another young lady. I'm waiting for her to read the script and see what she thinks, but I'm hoping that we'll produce that one next April, May, or something like that.
And so is that based on Beauty and the Beast then?
Well, just the title.
Okay.
It's just, he sees her in a coffee shop, falls in love with her immediately, and she won't give him her name. She doesn't believe in dating, and she tells him that she doesn't believe in dating because it's just a futile practice of people thinking that they're in love. And so he just calls her Beauty until she actually reveals her name to him. So, and then he's the atheist, of course, and they have a challenge. He says, okay, you show me your God and then I'll believe. And so that starts their debate. So her father was the one who had the original debate with him. Her father's actually me. And so it's a Christian movie maker who has this debate with his atheist. And then so he falls in love with this gal in the coffee shop and ends up having this debate with her. And he finds out that her father was the one that he had been debating in the first place.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. So I like irony too. I don't need a full spoonful of it, but a half a teaspoon. And
that sounds like a movie to watch. We'll be praying for that movie to be produced and distributed well and to reach people in the atheist community. It reminds me of Ray Comfort. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but
oh yeah, Living Waters.
Yeah, he does keynote speeches at atheist conventions, and they shred him, but he doesn't care because he just wants to reach them.
Right.
And that it reminds me of what you're doing. You're taking, it's really Romans 8:28 here. It's just they make fun of you on their site, and you debated one of them, and now you're going to turn it into a movie to reach them because you care about their souls more than you care about what they think about you. That's love. That's beautiful.
One of the things that I want to do is start doing more YouTube videos. It's hard to get a feature film together. The cost of it, especially I've spent a lot. I didn't mention it. I financed all of my own films, and I have not gotten the money back nearly probably 25%. So I can't keep doing this forever. And so I hope to start putting out some content on YouTube, which just takes a few hours of work and which can pay me instead of me having to pay, for actors and camera crew and stuff like that. I can do it myself for free. So, but the trouble is my YouTube channel doesn't have enough subscribers to get monetized. So until I get 1,000, I can't apply for monetization. So that's my desire. Then once I get that out there, then I can start putting out videos that people can just pop in and, get a short rant from me about, evolution or about the health issues or, there's so many different topics that need to be addressed. So.
All right. Well, you heard the challenge. Let's go ahead and subscribe to Donald's YouTube channel. Link is in the description below, and let's get him monetized. Would you ever have your movies, you think, on the YouTube channel if it was
monetized? Absolutely. Right now, my movies are monetized out on Rich Cristiano's channel. There's a lot of, he has over 1 million subscribers. So there are more potential people that can come and watch those movies, but they seem to have gotten to a point where not many people are watching them right now. So at some point in time, and my contract is running out, so I don't have to leave them out there. I could pull them off and put them on my own. So that's a possibility.
That's great. I found your movies on Rich Cristiano's Christian Movies YouTube channel, and we appreciate all that he's doing, and his brother Dave. But it would be really nice to find them all in one place on your YouTube channel, and that would be great. And your movie production company, Sword of the Spirit, that's from Ephesians 6. Is that where you got the name? And does your production company include your books? Are they published under Sword of the
Yes.
Spirit too?
Correct.
Okay. And
Yeah,
let's talk about your books. What
Oh,
kind,
yeah.
kind of books have you written, and where are they available?
Well, they're on Amazon.
Mhm.
They're on my website too, but it's reached a point where it's better for people to order them from Amazon. I have to order them from Amazon, and then I have to ship them to them. So it's not, if an author's got a bunch of books in their garage, it's good for them to sell them off their website so they can get rid of their inventory. But I reached a point where I quit doing that because you pretty soon your house, my house is full of movies right now. I got DVDs that I can't get rid of. So I've given away more than I've sold, I think. So with books, they're heavier and they take up more room and stuff. So I just quit buying books up. So when some people order books from my website, then I order them from Amazon. But my first book, I was told to write a book about evolution. So that was what I did. And so then it branched off. I go, well, I actually had written one when I was 30 years old. It's a kid's romance, about eighth grader who through his senior year in high school, sports. And I wrote it, sent it to a few publishers, nobody wanted it. So I kind of gave up. And so after I wrote this one, I'm going like, gee whiz, I could kind of work that first book I wrote into a prequel and make this a series. So then I had to write a one in between to bridge them. So, and then I wrote two more that to follow it. So I got a 5-book series, and they all of them had the first one was called the Bulldog Compact, but after that they all had wind in the title. So we had More Than Dust in the Wind, All the Voices of the Wind, which was a song by Avalon, which I just absolutely loved. I'd always dreamed that having that movie with that song playing. Don't know if that'll ever happen or not, but and then all the stillness of the wind, that small still voice. The wind is representative of the Holy Spirit. So, and then all the fury of the wind in my last one. So we get all the different aspects of the Holy Spirit, I think. So I started with that, and then I moved on to Harry Potter. So I wrote one called Reforming the Potter's Clay. And people's like, why'd you choose that title? And I'm like, well, think about it. We are supposed to be formed in the potter's clay. Well, these kids that are reading Harry Potter something, they're getting formed in Harry Potter's clay, becoming witches, etc. So I thought the title was perfect. So very few people have ever read it. I had one author who I really like had read it, and she loved it. But I had the grandkids of one of my friends in my hometown that had bought the book for him. He says, the best book you ever read. And but I would guess probably fewer than 20 people have read it. And
it's such an important topic too.
Yeah.
I really think Harry Potter is the enemy's using Harry Potter to point people to the enemy.
But I try to kind of use the same technique that the author of Harry Potter did. It's about kids, got some sport involved, and I built it as magic versus miracles. So we had the counterfeit of the devil versus the real of the Holy Spirit. And so in one of my books I talk about, and it's all the voices of the wind. I talk about Charles Dickens' book, Tale of Two Cities. So I was going to make one, The Tale of Two Pretties, about two females, one who's raised as a Christian raised in a Christian home, one who's not, and one she's kind of hellish, and then as they get older, they kind of cross paths, and one gets converted, and the other one finds her life in shambles. Because she's walked away from God.
Mm.
So I've never finished that one. I just got that title and that idea, but I've never gotten to the
Boy.
point where we get her done. But
Oh, that sounds powerful. Let me encourage you on that one.
yeah.
That sounds very realistic too.
Well, they see that with people. I mean, there's people are changing all over. You know how your life has changed drastically.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And God intervenes in people's lives, and the devil is working on everybody, trying to get us to go the wrong way.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. The world, it's just filled with, it's crazy because, I grew up in Christian Science, unity, religious science, the New Thought. And it was very benign compared to the cult and New Age that I got into in 1991. I segued because I was cast as a speaker on the speaker circuit of a New Age festival that traveled. But back then, if you wanted, and I don't know why I wouldn't want them, but back then, if you were looking for tarot cards or any kind of book, you'd have to go to a specialty store.
Right.
It'd be this little teeny store in the corner in the alleyway to
in
find
only
this stuff.
certain cities.
Yeah. And nowadays you can go into Target, Walmart, Barnes and Noble has a whole section called self-transformation that has all that garbage in it. And it's dark stuff. And even my New Age publisher, Donald, when I started with them, and that would have been early 90s, they would not do anything about psychics or witchcraft. You couldn't even use the word psychic. It was all health and, you think and grow rich kind of things, which is bad, but it was nothing that you would call a cult. But then they ended up publishing this very famous psychic named Sylvia Brown, who was famous because she would go on this talk show called Montel Williams. And so she sold lots and lots of books. And so they said, oh, let's just keep going in that direction. So pretty soon they were publishing all the psychics, all the witches. And then after God saved me, this publisher fired me because I put on my own Facebook page, Deuteronomy 18, 10 through 12, that condemns witchcraft and divination and, omen interpretation. The publisher said, we need to let you go because you are offending the witches that are our clients.
Oh.
And I was floored because of how far they had come. I mean, they'd never been a Christian house, but at least they were, more about health and that sort of thing. And positive thinking was the worst thing they ever published. But now that they're all about witchcraft because it makes them money. And it's so normalized these days. These poor kids, if they don't hear the gospel, who's gonna share it with them?
Right.
So I appreciate your movies, and my point in this interview is really to encourage people to watch your movies. And again, there might be some secondary theological differences.
I'm not, a gung ho. What I refer to myself as a charismatic with a seatbelt.
Yeah, I've seen that in your posts, and I appreciate that. That's the same with me. If God can do whatever God wants to do, and who are we to say that he can't do this or that? I know God is beyond anything that our human mind can even grasp.
But there are people out there that are a little bit on the fringe that we go way too far.
Yes.
Because that's the way the devil works. If you start going in a direction he doesn't want you to go, he'll just keep pushing you further so you go past the mark.
That's right.
And so people get out into crazy stuff.
They do. And it gives charismatic a really bad name. So I'm always careful with people who are obviously false prophets. I call them hyper charismatics, just like with, I'm not a Calvinist, but they call them hyper Calvinists, the people who say, oh, God is predetermining people to hell. I mean, that's hyper Calvinism. I don't know anybody who believes that. So I think one of the reasons I really appreciate you and your movies is that you bring the conversations together. You have a cessationist talk to a continuationist. You have someone who speaks in tongues, dialogue with someone who would never do that. And you bring up modern authors like John MacArthur and Michael Brown on different spectrums. And you these are things that people need to look at and talk about. Otherwise, we're just like the political party who said, well, you're this political party, so I'm not going to talk to you. we are brethren. We need unity in the church as long as we all agree on the gospel.
There's a phrase that I've always tried to live by, and it's not important who's right. It's important what's right.
Yeah. It's really interesting because when you get into Christianity, like I did at age 59, you don't know what is going on with the different denominations and the different theologies. That's one of the reasons I went to seminary right off the bat. And I was very blessed to go to a seminary that had a wide variety of professors, but they all had the common denominator of where's Jesus as we're reading this, and where's the gospel, and gospel centered. And so we can easily get into making caricatures of the different denominations if we're not careful. And your movie just really humanizes this. And there's a theologian I want to give a shout out to named Dr. Wave Nunnally, who's a continuationist and who is so solid for theology and for biblical truth. And I think he really opened my eyes more than anybody, in addition to your movies, that we can't just sit there and go, oh, you're a charismatic, oh, you're Reformed, I'm not going to listen to you. There's something that people are adding to the conversation from these different denominations. Don't you agree?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So thanks for letting me be on my soapbox with that, because I just see a lot of people squabbling needlessly on social media about Arminianism versus Calvinism and the different eschatological viewpoints. That's not going to save people who are watching your conversation. That's not the gospel.
All these people arguing about stuff, and a lot of this stuff, is the devil mixing us up. It reminds me of a cartoon. There's that Mickey Mouse, I think it was. He was really, really small. He got these two giants, and he plunked one of them with a rock, and the giant would look over at the other giant, think he did it. So he'd hit him or something like that. So he hits him back again. And that's what I'm seeing in the world of Christianity is the devil's plunking us, and we're thinking that we're being attacked by our fellow man. But, the Bible tells us we don't war against flesh and blood. So we need to figure that out and quit attacking one another and just have some grace and just sit down and say, okay, what's important is the truth here. Now, what is the truth? Let's work on this together, because we all want the same thing, right?
Right. Well, thank you very much, Donald James Parker, aka Gramps, in some of his movies. Best friend, director, actor, scriptwriter. You probably do a lot more hats during these filmings.
Oh yeah.
Lighting director, probably sound engineer, editor, and all the above. Really appreciate your efforts.
Thank you.